Welcome back, listeners, to the Brighter Side of Blue, the podcast. I'm Danny.
I'm Tommy.
I'm JJ.
JJ, how you doing tonight, buddy?
Doing good.
So JJ's feeling a little zenish tonight, Tommy.
He came in with a hell of a quote, man.
Yeah, he was reading quotes.
Good one.
Yeah, very thoughtful.
I read a quote today. I thought it was interesting.
Can you tell us?
I share it. Now you're busting my balls.
We're not
No. We want to get to the Zen
You want to hear
place.
it? I'm going to say it again.
Yep.
When thoughts turn into words, words turn into action, action turns into character, and character turns into everything.
Damn right.
That is some
That's
deep.
Author unknown.
Deep thoughts from JJ.
I don't know who the author is, actually.
We should claim
You
it.
should have just took credit.
Yeah,
I thought it was Mr. T said that.
I think
that was good. I liked it.
John.
We can do a Zen moment with JJ once in a
No,
while.
that's
Deep
enough.
thoughts
Deep
with
thoughts.
JJ.
Deep thoughts with JJ.
Man.
I love it.
Okay.
Hey,
One more time. Let's hear it one more time.
Yeah, one more time. Hey, Tommy, we also took a little critique beating from JJ. His people are saying we shouldn't give our shout-outs because we're in 334 cities,
Yep.
9 countries. Portugal and Argentina just came on board.
Yep.
And JJ's people are saying that we shouldn't appreciate our
Listen,
people.
We're going to thank the listeners every day.
I don't
Every
we can't
time we're
thank
on.
them. We just don't belabor it.
We're not going to belabor it. 334 cities. We're
But
not.
we're nothing without these guys, and they're spreading the word. We need their support.
And there are people now.
You're missing my message, but I get it.
Right.
Okay.
I'm fine.
When we start thanking each listener by name, then we've gone too far.
Right. No, but we appreciate the support, and keep telling your people, and let's grow this thing. We're having a lot of fun. I hope you guys can see that or hear that. Because
Tell me your idea with the merch. The merch is going to be on the
merch
link.
store. The
It's
merch store is open.
top-notch stuff.
Yes, and you can show your continued support with visiting our merch store. We've got the links up on our Facebook and our Twitter, but we're also going to put them in the description of the upcoming podcast. And the merch store is only going to be open because the company we're using, they make us open and close the merch store at a certain time, and they won't ship the equipment until we close it. So the closing date is going to be January the 31st. So get your orders in. When you go on that page, you can go to women. There's women clothing. There's men's clothing, hats, hoodies, quarter zips. And that's just another way that you can help support our show and what we're doing. And we've got some exciting stuff that we're working on. Video. We've hired. The family's getting bigger. JJ's nephew, Wes. What's Wesley's full name, JJ?
Davis?
Wesley Davis, and he's going to help us out with our upcoming little segment called On the Street. And producer John and I will be visiting certain locations in the city with surprise guests that you guys will know, such as Woody and other people. And we'll be visiting places in the city, and we'll be putting that on our YouTube channel. And I'm rattling here, but hang with me. So that'll be on our YouTube channel. And also on board, we are bringing Jack Milliken. And Jack helps out other podcasts, and he's going to help us out. And we're going to kick up our video game. We're going to be on YouTube on video.
Instagram Shorts.
Instagram Shorts are going to get kicked up, our other shorts, and TikTok. We're on TikTok too. We're going to up our short game with little clips here and there to get people to tune into the podcast. But you guys are already listeners, but those are some of the other things that we're going to get kicked up, and by supporting us initially with this merch would really help us out in getting all that moving.
That's well said. Well said. It'll be on the link, and it's good quality stuff. And producer John had nothing to do with picking it out, and so you'll look good in it, and we'll roll with it.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
So this week, real quick, I just want to say we've got some other things to cover, but this week we have Harry Hegger on as our Legend Series number 3 continues. We will have our last of this series of Legend Series. We're going to have some other ones coming up, but we're going to move on to different formats and different stories. Next week we'll have Jerry Layshak, a great friend of ours, did a great job wearing here. And he was on episode, what was that, 5, I think, where guarding the Cardinals. He was telling stories about that. But we're going to give Jerry his kudos and his props with having him as a legend in our series. And then next week, we will be recording our first video podcast. And the system works. We really want stories from other people. The city doesn't have a lockdown on great police work that's going on. And so JJ's going to tell you how this one occurred.
Actually, yeah. So she's going to be thrilled. That's going to be our first video one. I got a message on Facebook, private message from a county police officer. I know her from the girls soccer team. Her name is Emily Gillian, and she sent me a text or messenger and said that she has a friend that's retired now. She's got some great stories, and she has a story about South County rapist that she actually set out a plan and caught him. And her name is Jennifer Williams. She's coming next week. And I'm going to have to tell her she's breaking ground. She's going to be the first one that's going to be on video.
Oh, yep, and that'll be fun. And
I'm going to have to go get a haircut then.
Yeah,
You're looking smooth.
My barber retired.
Hey, who you telling? We can see it. It's quite obviously.
I just grow a ponytail. I just grow it out.
Going to a new barber is just not an easy thing.
It's stressful.
Don't roll in a new barber.
Tell you, you can come to my house and my neighbor will cut it. You know her, Emily.
Okay, all right.
She cuts my hair.
It's stressful not to have a consistent hair person.
That's a big move. This guy's been cutting my hair for 35 years.
What happened to him?
He's retired.
He retired?
Enough was enough.
Yeah.
You got tired of cutting your hair.
Yeah.
I'm scared now. I'm scared. I'm
You'll be
going to
all
let
right.
it grow out.
Got tired of the terrible tips.
Because we're on video next week, and it's going to be downloaded
Not
to
next
YouTube.
week. Next week's going to be when we put our show out on Friday. It'll be the Jerry Layshawk show, which will be much what's going on now. But then the following week, we will start kicking up our video. And we encourage everybody to go to YouTube, where all of our videos will be played. There will be shorts on other places, but all our videos will be played on YouTube. And so go to video. And I know some of our listeners are not familiar with YouTube, don't use the computer a whole lot. But just go to YouTube, type in, search The Brighter Side of Blue podcast. Go to that, subscribe, hit the subscribe button, and follow the instructions. And you can hit the little bell up in the right corner, and you will be notified anytime we put anything out, because we won't have a certain schedule, but we're really going to put some of those 10, 20, 30-minute videos out of us going around the city.
But doesn't mean you have to watch the video. You can actually click on YouTube in your car, plug it into your phone, and in your radio, and you can hear it still.
Correct. It'll be the same as Spotify plays. We don't want to, and if you're a Spotify person, you don't go away from that. It's just going to have a video portion, and sometimes we might be able to comment on videos that we play, some funny videos that maybe some policemen are chasing some people down that we might want to comment on, or we will post a lot of our articles from Newsroom, John's time in the newsroom, stuff like that. So we're really looking forward to that.
This was all decided down in our Naples headquarters. JJ wasn't there. You what were you out shooting at?
I fished.
Oh, you don't shoot
we don't
fish.
We're too lazy to deer hunt, so we drink beer and we get on this pond.
Who's we?
My brothers and my son and my cousins in Alabama, middle of nowhere. I couldn't get a phone line. I had to walk up a hill, get a phone line out. It's kind of nice being off the grid.
So you weren't hunting?
Well, some of them were. Some of the younger cousins were hunting, but no, it's too much work. So we just get on a pontoon boat and we go out on this little lake and we fish, and that's what we did. And we drank beer and we eat well.
Pontoon, was it like freezing down there?
No, it was 60 degrees, 50, 60 degrees. Perfect.
Well, that's not bad.
Yeah. It's
Did you
great.
save any dogs down there?
Actually, no, but man, there is next to the house there's a bunch of dogs. It's in the country, so one of the cousins, she has a lot of dogs. So I had to close this gate and walk across this road, and a pack of dogs come running at me, and I had my pistol on me.
Oh, boy.
I just yelled at them to stop.
Here we go, John.
I thought there was like 10 dogs running at me, and I just stopped, and I knew I couldn't run, so I yelled at them to go home. And they all stopped, and they turn around, and the two white dogs come out. I'm telling you, you got to be the alpha male, and I was. And
Did
I
you
walked
curse
in-
at them?
Huh? Yeah,
Did
I
you
said,
curse at
"Oh,
'em?
Heck yeah! I
Did you
said,
drop an F-bomb at 'em?
Fuck yeah, I did. And then they stopped and looked at me, and there's two white dogs, and they're growling, and they worried me, and they finally went. I yelled at them a couple more times to get back, And they did. They turned around and went back, and I got back, and they were watching. My brothers and everybody were watching. They're like, holy shit, we thought you were going to shoot them. And the one cousin says, those white dogs, they would have bit you.
Oh, my God. John, I had no idea we were going to get a story. I
got me and dogs. Isn't it?
Yeah, what is it with you?
This is not.
That was not a planned story.
No.
Were you able to chip any of them?
I wouldn't chip them. There's a couple dogs in the group that were really cool, and they came up later and we
talked to you and apologized for the whole thing.
Friends. I think they were trying to apologize for the white dogs.
Yeah, for their behavior.
Yeah.
Wow. They saw the Mobile Reserve patch and they just turned around and ran.
I don't know about that, but I used my Mobile Reserve voice.
Mobile Reserve voice.
Speaking of Mobile Reserve, your people knocked it dead here in the last week, didn't they?
Yeah. Last night they had about 5 arrests. They got a car that was wanted for murder from the county. The car was wanted for murder. The person driving wasn't probably the person, but the county grabbed the car and fingerprinted it and took it from us. But
how many arrests?
5 arrests of originals, and then we got the car that was wanted for murder in the county.
It's a good night.
And tonight when we go in tonight at 6, we're gonna hit it up hard again, and they'll go.
So how's the? Are we getting the word "hots" back into the police vernacular?
I kind of failed you there. I forgot about bringing that up.
So we need, in a honor to Joe Spee Sr., we need to get hots back into police vernacular.
I'm gonna explain that to them.
I'm
just gonna start using it and see if they pick up on it.
Yeah. We need some hots tonight.
We need some hots.
We gotta get some hots. Yeah.
That's how I'm going to start it.
There you
I'm
go.
going to tell them, they're going to be like, what the hell's a hot?
I like it, baby.
All right.
Yeah, bring it on.
Yep, I got you. That's on. I'll let you know. I'll give you an update next week. And
What else we
also-
got, Tommy?
Hey, wait. We need to. Can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We haven't.
Another dog story?
The Nancy Brandon case. We have not come up with any updates. We're still on it. There's some things going on behind the scenes. We're just going to let it roll. We're going to keep it quiet. We're going to slow play it right now. But
Right. Maybe come with positive news. So
yeah, we're hoping
weeding
maybe
through some of the negative.
Yes, and there'll be some news shortly that I will be able to hopefully come up with next week.
Okay.
Perfect.
Nothing earth shattering, but at least getting the ball rolling in the right direction.
Sounds good.
So I got to get to something real quick. Last week, we got into the family thing with the Godfather, and we ended with the Lockenick family with Hank and Joe's story about that. But I made a complete knuckleheaded omission when I was talking about Tony and Timmy Lockenick. I completely forgot to mention Tony's son, TJ, and is also a police officer, works in the Brentwood Police Department. He's their dog handler. I don't know, the K9 guy.
Dogs keep coming up to me.
Yep. And not only,
Is his dog chipped?
I got to think it is, his dog's name is Red Bull. Spaz, I got to think. His name's Red Bull. If you go by Red Bull, you got to have a little.
Well, didn't he
energy.
just make a good arrest with the dog?
I didn't see the dog, but we'll get to that in a minute. But
Okay.
the other, and then I also forgot that TJ's mom and Tony's wife, Becky, her father is his name is Fred Arms. He did 20 years in the city, and he retired out
Police
in,
department, not in the
20
DL.
years in the city police department. I'm sorry, and he retired as the sheriff of Butler County. So that's a good family lineage right there with
A lot
both
of law
grandfathers.
enforcement in that family.
Yeah.
A lot of community help.
His father, his uncle, and now TJ. And
What's sad is Tony was ranked up there, but now TJ comes on and he gets bumped down.
right, because we had originally named
Hank,
Hank as the top locking
Right.
cop.
right?
So now we'll have to redo the rankings. And I think we'll go ahead and put Fred and Hank like
At the
tied
top.
for first, right? So then you gotta think. I don't know. Do you put TJ at 2 or?
TJ 2, Timmy, then Tony.
So TJ just had that good arrest. So
Right.
TJ, not too long ago, we got him. We're on a text thread with the chief of police of Brentwood, and he often brags on his people. So he sent us out a little message saying that TJ in Richmond Heights had jumped a stolen car. They big chase, blah blah blah. The guy gets out and run. Well, that TJ ends up running him down. No mention of the dog helping him. I think it's not one of those aggressive dogs. It's
Oh, so TJ did the running.
TJ did the running, and he got the guy, and he got the pistol.
Well, he definitely jumps over Tony
So
right
therefore,
now.
right. So he's
So
out of,
going into this, Tony is bringing up the rear. He is bottom.
Timmy's
of the,
down. Yeah, Timmy's there too.
Timmy is, but listen, I rode with Timmy, and I don't appreciate. He made fun of my long neck, and I didn't appreciate that. I laughed and giggled, but it hurt
so you
my
put
feelings.
Timmy at the bottom then.
No, because Tony was worse, because Tony worked for me, and Tony would never do one thing I asked. Not even one. Tony, he would nod his head in a blank stare and never do anything that I asked.
Well, I worked for him when he was a sergeant. And I'll say one thing about Tony. He's the highest ranked sergeant when he was on, especially the end of his career. He did not give two shits on what he said to anybody.
No, and I guess I fall in that category.
I think he worked for you last, didn't he, Danny?
I'd say, hey, Tony, I need to do this, and he'd look at me and go, no.
So let's go down. So TJ made that good arrest, so we'll put him at 2 now.
Yeah.
And then I guess we'll put Red Bull at 3.
Timmy at 4.
And then we're on Timmy 4.
And Tony is a 5, barely with a pulse.
If
I mean, Tony
However-
I might even take his badge. I mean, he's.
I don't know.
No,
He's
he's
pretty
good.
harsh on Tony.
he's pretty.
Yeah, I don't know why I got mad at Tony. That's so bad. I mean, Timmy made fun of my
He's
Pretty
neck.
harsh.
He's
It
a great.
was.
And I hate to say good about him. He was a good sergeant to work for. He took care of all our complaints and everything. But when I used the Jack Me Off story, no one got a bigger kick out of it. When we walked in that office, he thought it was funny. Still, I knew it was not good for me.
Yeah, and he didn't care. He was still
He was still
funny. He was
chuckling.
glad you did it
Yeah.
because it was at your expense.
He even laughed on the phone. I didn't think it was funny. I knew I was in trouble. But he don't care. He didn't
No.
care.
All right, so there we have it. So there's the final rankings, and we'll move on
hold
from that.
Now, anybody that wants to move up in the rankings, you send us a picture with your merch on. We can move you. We're easily brought.
Okay.
You can move up in the rankings, and then I would imagine if TJ follows, Uncle and Daddy, that he's probably going to drop below the dog at one point in time.
Well, Tony would have to buy 400 hats, 600 quarter zips.
He's deep fine.
He's deep. He's down. Come on, get that credit card out. Let's go.
They're all
Brighter
like
side of
family.
blue.
That's why we make fun
No,
of
they
them.
are.
So.
They can take it. Whatever. But
And then don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. Just make that part of the whole little trilogy of shit you were going to do to show your support.
what's the
buy
Kelsey,
merch.
what's the Kelsey Brothers podcast? New Heights. What's the name of it?
I think it's New Heights. It's the name where they grew up. in
Well,
Cleveland.
we're gonna reach out to them and take the poll.
Yeah,
Have
they
them
should.
take the poll.
Yeah,
They should take the poll.
Right, because we're big. We're as big as they are. Just
They
reach
call-
out and say, hey,
they
fellow
call for
podcasters. Hey, fellow
advisory on this one.
podcasters.
Is there a podcast convention we can go to?
Fellow potties,
We
not
are,
hotty toddies.
not to brag or anything, but we are in the top 25% of podcasts right now.
All right, yeah.
And moving up.
Really?
And only because our listeners are so awesome and they keep telling them people. And we're going to keep putting out some good stuff. We have a lot of good
We
stuff
better
coming
hurry up right now because we're dragging on.
Here he goes again. Here he goes again. As soon as you
No,
start,
we are
as soon as you start thanking
People
the
are
listeners and telling them they're awesome, Jimmy wants to move on.
No. This,
He don't like you people.
Like I said, I'm going to hurt feelings.
All right. What else? Now we've got our. I thought it was a good idea, and with Harry Hegger, we'll try to get closer. As the next couple segments are going to get closer and closer to Harry Hegger's stories. But I thought it was a good idea. Was John, producer John's first day in the intelligence division,
Working
under,
for
Harry Hegger, and in this particular night, he was with Danny, and they were going to school, and they decided before they went to school they were going to stop off at a local establishment,
Missouri Bar and Grill.
Missouri Bar and Grill,
So wait a minute, this
and John.
before you're a policeman?
No,
No,
What
this
are you
is-
going to
they-
school for? What kind of school?
What do you mean?
hey, you know what they say, JJ? When you're done learning, you're done.
All right.
Okay.
So you're actually going to
That's
school.
some kind of Zen stuff too.
Yeah, look that up in
you
your
thought
Zen
you had
book.
you
okay?
thought you had a good
I
saying.
We're always learning.
I got my master's degree while working in the department.
Okay, then why'd you ask the
Because
question?
I never heard that you guys went to school.
What do we?
Well, it didn't turn out that great.
That's what I'm saying.
So moving on with the story.
All right, cool. I'm sorry to interrupt. Cut.
So they decided they jumped in the car to each. They weren't working with each other. They just said, "Let's go to school together." They were in the same class. So John jumped in with Danny, and he thought it was a good idea to take his newly issued intelligence radio and place it under the seat of Danny's passenger seat, and John will take it from there.
Yeah, we're going to Webster University at night.
There you go.
It was my first day in intelligence, and I got transferred to intelligence when our friends Joe Speece and Tony Lockenick got promoted. Myself and Don Grace, another great officer, went down there to intelligence. So it was the first night. Got my radio. Dan drove. He was in Vice. He had his Vice car. We went to Missouri Bar and Grill because we had like an hour to kill. We got a burger and a beer, and somebody came in. We're in there eating, and a man came off the street and said, "Hey, whoever's got that silver car out there, somebody just broke your window." So we go out there, and I look, and it's Dan's car, and I start laughing. It's because I thought it was funny, this car. Well, what I did, and I said, "Oh shit! I left my radio under the seat." So I reach under the seat, and there it is. Well, I pull it out, but it's Dan's radio. It's not mine, so I don't have mine. So anyway, now it's my first day. I'm bummed out. My radio's gone, and I got to get this radio back. So we decided to go out and try and. There's all kinds.
Police work?
Yeah, we're doing some police work. So we stop a couple people. Did you see anything? No. And then Gus's was still on the corner there.
Gus's Fashions.
Gus's
Fine
Fashions.
Fashions.
Oh, classic.
So we go in there and nobody knows anything. So Jimmy the Midget was working at Gus's Fashions. So Jimmy knows everybody downtown, and Jimmy the Midget is a short guy that worked there.
That often wore a fake badge.
He was definitely short.
He was the commissioner.
Jimmy the Midget's not my nickname for him. That's what everybody in St. Louis.
I'm Jimmy. I'm Jimmy the
He had his
Midget.
little,
Yeah. So
he had a
anyway,
little gun in his fake
we
gun.
could do 10 stories on Jimmy. So I said, Jimmy, I gave him my card. I said, somebody broke in our car, took my police radio. If you hear it, we can find out. Jimmy knew everybody that hung around downtown. So meanwhile, Dan and I are going, and, we saw somebody look like they might be looking in cars or something, we would stop them. So Jimmy calls me and he goes, "Hey, John, what was the call letters on that radio?" I said, "Jimmy, don't worry about it. If you find a police radio, call me, all right? Just don't worry about it." So anyway, we keep going. Dickie Burgess and Eddie Hegger were in the gang squad. So I called them. I said, "Hey, if you're downtown," because I'm desperate to find this radio. So an hour or two later, Eddie Hegger calls me and goes, "John, we got your radio. We're up at Gravois and Russell. We just stopped this car." So Dan and I are screaming up there. And then Eddie calls me back and says, "Oh, never mind. It's an 8th District radio. Some 8th District copper lost a radio and the car stopped.
Jeez.
And the radio fell out. The guy didn't even know it yet. So they got his radio back." So anyway,
So Dan's got his radio.
Dan's got his radio. So we're it's getting desperate. It's been a few hours, and Jimmy calls again and said, "Hey, look, there's this prostitute that I know, and she said that her boyfriend has your radio." Goes, they just left. She's following him, and he did a good job. He said, the guy's wearing a camo, jacket, and he had a backpack and whatever. So they were in the area, right, because Jimmy had just seen them. So we find this guy by the old post office.
You and Dan still.
Yeah.
So school's been canceled. We ain't going to school.
We ain't going to school this night. And the girl's walking behind her boyfriend, and she's like pointing at him to us. So I said, "Dan, we can't lose
That could be
this
the guy.
So I'm like, thank God. We found. So I go, "Hey, we can't lose this guy. I don't want to just pull up alongside him and jump out because he'll take off." So we went around the building, and Dan let me off around the corner. So I just walked up. I was on the side street, and then I turned the corner and started walking toward him. And then Dan was coming down the street. So I said, so now I'm walking toward the guy. So as soon as I see him, I get close to him, I just grab him and throw him down. And I went and I pulled his backpack off and I ripped it open to get my radio. Well, he had a radio. It was a transistor radio. and he was trying to sell it. And Jimmy thought it was my radio. He didn't see it.
That's why I wanted to know the call
Dude, he
letter.
asked you what the call letters were.
Yeah, it
was KMOX.
Yeah, RCA.
1120.
So anyway, so we get the guy, and he's very, very pissed off, and
That he was treated as such.
yeah, and we ran him, and he wasn't a great guy. He had a bad record and stuff, but he didn't have my radio, so now he's all pissed off. So we talked to him, and they say, hey, get your radio back. I think he might, I don't know, he may have warrant or something or whatever, but we're trying to make peace with the guy.
Well, I
So
bought the radio. That made peace. I bought his radio.
Dan still listens to it when he goes out jogging. But we ended up settling with this guy by we took him to a tavern up on Olive, and I gave him like $20-$30 so he could go get drunk, and
That still works with me today.
yeah. So anyway, never heard from the guy again. I never got my radio back. And then the next day, I had to go into work, and I went into then Lieutenant Hegger's office, and I said, "Hey, Lieutenant, I really wanted to make a big impression on my first day, but it wasn't this kind of impression. I want to make a good impression, like lock up a bank robber or something." But I ended up getting a 5-day suspension.
Oh, yeah.
For that.
Those radios are no joke. They're
Did you have to
expensive.
pay for it?
No, they
That's what those
just
5
take
days
that.
did.
That's what they take. They just
Take your
how
suspension.
many ever days it
You didn't
takes
pay
to get
for
that
it.
amount of money. That's what it costs me to.
They're expensive, those radios.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Nope.
So
You
anyway,
thought it would be a good idea.
thought it would be a good idea. I was trying to improve myself, and so was Dan by going back to school. And
Yeah. Which JJ can't believe.
I'm proud of you guys.
Thanks,
Did you
JJ.
graduate from it?
I
Yeah.
did find it funny that you found it alarming that these two went to school.
No, we just kind of throw school out there. I'm like, what kind of school? Are they going to?
and
What
really,
would they go to?
You know,
we-
it's so
we-
foreign. What is up with him? And some of the
maybe-
critiques we're getting is we're hard on JJ.
Maybe you might have been going to a school to like to talk to students or something about policing, and
well,
like
the main
smoking.
thing is our friend Sue Neely would always tell us what classes to take because she knew we weren't very dedicated to educating ourselves. So she just gave us the teachers that were a little bit.
We should just
easier.
drive over and give our diplomas directly to her because she navigated our careers and schooling.
She helped me.
You promoted several times. That degree did.
Yeah.
I think you needed a degree to get a couple of them promotions, didn't you?
Certain, yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So that was a good one, John, producer John.
That was a good one.
I remember it well.
I remember it very well.
So
I can confess to you now, and I don't want to hurt your feelings, producer John, but I was only slip acting like I cared because I had my radio.
I ain't getting transferred.
At least I had all the windows
I
in
ain't
my
getting
car.
transferred.
So Jimmy the Midget was short, right?
Jimmy the Midget was a midget. He called himself Jimmy the Midget, but he would dress. He worked at Gus's Fashion. He was very close to another legend, Sergeant Ron Clyer.
Yes.
They hung out, and but Jimmy would dress in different costumes whenever you saw him. But most of the time, he was dressed in some. He called himself the police commissioner. And so I went in there to buy a Rams jersey one time, and he wasn't in his police commissioner costume. He was in a train conductor. He was
Yeah.
dressed like a train conductor. And I walked in and I go, "Hey, Jimmy," and he goes, "Hey, come here." And he motioned me to
You do a
lean
good
down.
Jimmy.
'cause- yeah,
That is
oh, yeah,
something. You do a good Jimmy.
I
Solid.
motioned down because he is a midget, and that he calls himself Jimmy the Midget. So I leaned way down. I'm 6'4", a lot of neck, but I am 6'4". And I leaned down, and he goes, "Are you stupid? I'm undercover. You call me Jimmy. That's the police name. I am a train conductor." I'm like, "I am so sorry." I
Just
did
here
he have
for a
a
blow
Rams
your
jacket,
cover.
brother.
Did he have a lantern with him? Because we went to a happy hour at Union Station back when that was a place to go, and Jimmy was there, and he had the full conductor thing, but he also had the lantern.
The lantern, yeah.
It
Yeah.
was pretty cool.
And Ron Clyer would put him up on top of the bar, and they'd have beers. And anyway, all right. So,
So he was like,
enough.
Actually, I think he still lives with Gus.
Yeah, he does. Gus. Yep. And Gus is another friend of ours, and we know him well from Charlie Gito. God rest his soul. But yeah. Anyway, Tommy,
So,
what do
Danny,
we
if you
got?
wanted to support the show, what would you do?
I'd get on that link and buy some merch.
Good-looking merch.
It is strong merch.
We only got 3 weeks. Can't keep it open because they don't ship it out. We don't get paid until the store closes, and we can only close it one time. So
get out
that's
there.
just the way it is. And
send us pictures of you in our gear.
send them to JJ.
Send them to JJ.
Send them to JJ. He's and you can contact if you don't know how to get to the link. Just other suggestions you might have for the show. Just email us at thebrightersideofblue at gmail.com and give us your suggestions. Give us what you like.
Critiques.
Anytime you want to ask one of the guests we've had on a question, such as Joe Burgoon, Harry Hegger, Joe Spieth Sr., Jerry Lashock. We keep in contact with these guys, and they would love to hear if you have any other further questions. Last week's show with Joe Burgoon, it's getting tons of great comments back, and people were like, "What about this case and what about that case?" So we're going to have Joe back on sooner than later, just to talk about other cases because when you work 1,000 homicide cases, it's tough to cover it in one podcast. So again, just communicate with us and what you like, what you don't like. Go ahead, Producer John.
Just for people who don't have access to the internet at whatever time, whatever. The website is. Let me start over. The link is brighterSide.itemorder.com /shop/home. brighterSide.itemorder.com/shop/home. So if you're just listening and you're not in your
Hit pause right now. Go get a pen. Go get a piece of paper.
Yeah, because
retrace or send it back a little bit, 30, 40 seconds, and then write that down if that's what you want to do. Or
That was
go
a
hit
long
us.
ass address though.
It is kind of so.
But the merch is worth it.
it's worth all the effort.
Thank you.
I like it. I like it.
What we got?
Hit pause.
Time to get back to the Legend Series, Tommy.
Yep.
Series 3.
Number 3.
Harry Hegger. We're going to call on this series From Marine Grunt to City Cop.
That's the tag on his book.
Right.
And wrote a great book. JJ, why don't you tell us about his book?
Well, before JJ says that, I'm sorry. Did I interrupt?
No,
Does that
you're
count
good.
as an interruption?
No, you're good. You caught it before.
Before, yeah, so it doesn't count. So I don't know why you're laughing, JJ. But
Because you're looking at me goofy. That long neck of yours.
think about it. That's pretty good.
I'm sorry, but
Hey, he introduced it.
yeah.
So I'm just telling you what we're bringing to the table for our listeners. An author, a war hero, Purple Heart, and
Two.
a legendary city police officer, well decorated. And he's on our show as a Legend Series number 3. But he also wrote a book, JJ, now you can take it.
Called Saluting the Green and the Blue. John and I think are the only ones at this table that actually read
I'm
it.
3/4 of the way through it.
It's a great book, and I really believe, I talked to Tom about it earlier, I think it's worthy of a movie. And I think I've already figured out
Like
how.
a little Netflix thing?
Netflix would be great.
Yeah.
Maybe start, and I think I know how to start the show out. He's sitting in our podcast, and he's going to tell us the story, and then it goes into, and it goes back like they do in those movies.
Right, and then it goes
into
that.
the movie part, right?
See? You should be a producer.
I should.
He's unbelievable
That was pretty
multitasking.
tight.
And you know what else?
That's
and then
pretty tight,
I even
man.
got the ending.
You do?
Yeah, because he's big with his charity. In the ending, he retires, and he shows he's retired. And then it shows him stand up in front of all the veteran guys that he's helping, and that's how he ends the show.
The Focus Marines,
Yeah,
which he
that's how-
talks about in episode 3.
Right.
And if you want to hear more about Harry, you can tune into episode 3 where he talks about Maury Travis and,
Right.
and
100%.
a couple other of his cases, and he talks about the Focus Marines. So if you haven't listened to episode 3, listen to episode 3 for more Harry.
Good call.
But tell us more about his book.
No, it's just I already did. It's just a great book.
Is
goes
the
from-
book better than the podcast?
right now? Yes, 100%.
So I will speak for all non-readers when I say that we all know that the book is better than the movie.
Oh, yeah.
All
It's mandatory
readers-
to say that.
all
the readers,
readers will
The readers want to let you know they're
They
readers.
would let you know that they read books by saying
They're better
the
than
book
us.
is,
So
the
you're ripping
book
on me
is
now
better
'cause
than
John Island was
Do you
read
say
this
that all the
thing.
time?
No, I
bet you do.
I've never.
You've never said the book is better than
They
the
usually
movie.
are. To be honest, they usually are. They can get more depth.
I get it.
They can, and actually, the one movie, and I don't know if we go down this line or not, but there was a movie with the seal that got caught, and they made it back.
Lone Wolf?
Lone Survivor.
Lone Survivor. I knew it was Lone
Great
Wolf.
book. Luttrell, Marcus Luttrell. Great book. Sorry, and the movie with Mark Wahlberg, it was okay, but they missed out on a lot of good stuff.
We know the book is better than the movie.
Oh, it was 100%.
I'm just saying, for all non-readers, we are down with that. We don't need to hear it anymore.
Well,
I'm
just giving you
public
giving you
service
example.
service announcement for readers and non-readers.
That's all I got.
Listeners?
But it's a good book. Read it for you guys that are
Absolutely.
Great.
And I do mean that. The podcast is not as good as the book. You can find that book, Saluting the Green and the Blue.
And a little tidbit, I think we talked about his granddaughter, I believe, came up with the name.
Yep.
That's
And we also use that tagline from Marine Grunt to City Cop as part of our title for the show.
Yeah.
And then, are we ready? You got anything else, Danny?
No,
Before we
I'm
close?
good. I'm good.
I just one more time. How can they support the show, JJ?
I think ordering our apparel, I guess.
Yeah, that would be start. And then what else can they do? Go to YouTube.
Right.
How about you go to YouTube and you download and you subscribe? Then you subscribe on YouTube. You're going to get all our videos, and that'll really help us out in what we're going to do in the future. Obviously, every download counts when you're in the podcast world, and every subscriber helps. So that's the way you can support us. And now we're going to get to the main section of this, and that's Harry telling his stories. He's got several nice stories here about an officer that tested positive for heroin and what Harry did during that investigation. The legendary Bays and Petties story about them, and then he goes much deeper into that in his book. So definitely buy his book. And then his meeting of his brother when they were in the service in Vietnam.
Be a great scene in the movie.
Yeah, they met each other, and then also hear a case about some policemen that went awry and some more. So enjoy our interview with Harry, and
Finally, we get to the main show. What do you think?
And buy Jimmy the Midget's new book,
Dude,
The Long and Short of St. Louis.
The long and short of
he
it.
says,
so I'm just going to give you Harry Hegger is unparalleled as far as his public service. I'm just going to give you a rundown of his public service career that started at the age of 18.
Gotcha.
When he joined the military, the Marine Corps, on June 11th of 1964. And he retired as the platoon sergeant of the rifle platoon in January of 1969. While he was in the military, he received a Bronze Star, 3 Purple Hearts, a Presidential Unit Citation, National Defense Service Award, Vietnamese Cross of Gallantry, 2 Meritorious Service Awards, as well as a Combat Action Ribbon. That wasn't enough, and then in February 8th, 1971, he joined the police department. He retired on January the 5th of 2009 as a major. During his career as a police officer, he was the commander of the South Patrol Division. He was the commander of the Central Patrol Division. He was the commander of Crimes Against Persons, which is homicide. And he was also the commander of IAD. He was also the commander of the Intelligence Division. And not only was he a commander of the Intelligence Division, but he was a detective, a sergeant, a lieutenant, and a captain in the Intelligence Division.
Jeez.
So while he was as the policeman, and again, he had others, I'm just highlighting his career. While he was in the police department, he received 23 Chief's Letters of Commendation, the FBI Academy Award for Leadership, the United States Attorney Leadership Award, 2 Meritorious Achievement Awards from the United States Attorney, the Exceptional Performance Award from the Board of Police Commissioners, as well as 4 Community Service Awards from various organizations. Now,
Well, just Harry has a book that he wrote, and it's a very good read. It's interesting, his life story from a memoir from a Marine grunt to a city cop. It's called Saluting the Green and the Blue. And it's a hardback book. I really enjoyed reading it. And he actually signed it for me. He wrote me a little note I'm going to read. It says, JJ, thanks for your outstanding career and leadership in the SLMPD. And by the way, the brighter side of blue, you are my favorite.
Look at that.
Love Lisa.
No, you didn't say that. You just said the brighter side of blue. I love the podcast, and you are my favorite of the three of you.
Can I see that?
No.
So
Just take my word for it.
I'll do a fact check on that later.
Yes.
we are absolutely honored today to have with us Harry Hegger. And Harry's career, I would say, is unparalleled as a public servant. And also joining us today is one of our, what now appears to be regular guests, Brentwood Chief Joe Spees. Say hi, Joe.
Hello, Thomas.
And I think it's really special for Joe to be on. Over the years, everybody speaks highly of Harry Hegger, but Joe Spees is a protege of Harry Hegger and worked with him for how many years, Joe?
Several in the intelligence unit. We were together.
Well, yeah, Joe, we worked together in the intelligence unit. You were a detective, and I came down as a lieutenant, and then you were there for a couple of years. You got promoted to sergeant, and then later on,
Barely. You remember that part
oh
of your
yeah,
assignment?
yeah. That investigation cost me a promotion.
And what Harry did for us, and we told him we told him about the premise of the show, and he really liked that. And he came in as a favorite to us. We haven't even put out a show at this point. When we're taping this show, we haven't even released a show yet. And for Harry to come in and tell us about his police career on a podcast that he has no idea where it's going, and taking his time to come in to. Thank you very much, Harry.
Oh, my pleasure.
There are certain people that bring credibility, and they bring credibility because they're fair and they treat police officers exactly as they should be treated. As a quick anecdotal story to that, Harry was an IED commander, I believe, when this story happened. But we had a St. Louis policeman that dropped dirty for, I believe, heroin or some opiate.
Yeah, for opiate.
And Commander Hegger said, nothing added up, and correct me if I'm wrong, you can interrupt whenever you want to. But it didn't add up. This guy didn't fit into the guy that's taking dope and blah, blah, blah. So
He didn't look like Woody.
no. You want to share that story real quick about what you did?
You know, they were doing the drug testing. This was early 90, and he came in with morphine, positive for morphine. The lab at St. Louis University Labs notified us. So I brought him up there and I went, and this guy worked down the born fugitive. Larry Doyle worked for Lieutenant Larry Doyle, who I had a tremendous amount of respect for, and Larry's a big believer in the guy. And I talked to him, and he's like, no. And I said, normally I have to suspend you right off the bat, but give you a few days to try and figure out why you morphine. And so he come up 3 days later and said, I said, well, I got to suspend you. And so we went to board trial, and his attorney tried to introduce the poppy seed theory, and it was never a proven theory. Some papers are written about it. So I called his attorney, and the board was going to fire him for drug use. And so I called his attorney and said, hey, how about your client and that officer is your client? Let's go in the hospital together. We'll share a room, and we'll recreate this. Because during the trial, he said, I ate these bagels with poppy seeds on it. Mm-hmm. That's the first we heard of it. He never brought that up in the trial. So his attorney goes, hey, that's pretty nice of you to do that. So I didn't hear from him. 2 days go by, and I called. He goes, "Hey, we're not going to do anything. We're not going to get involved in that." I said, "Okay." So I went by the same store, bought a bag of just like he had that was in evidence, which is now green mold. But I went and got a new bag.
The same style, or
the same from the same manufacturer and everything,
okay.
Same store. And on the way into the work to the office, I stopped at medical and gave a urine sample. So I went down to the office. I ate 3 of those things like he said he did. I waited 2 hours, went down, did another sample, and waited 2 hours after that. Went down, and got another sample. So I went by there the next day, and the St. Louis U lab says, "Hey, we got 2 positives here."
On you?
Well, they don't know who it is. It was just a number. So we brought that chemist in and said, hey, are you sure this is this? Yeah, this guy either took heroin and it metabolized over 24 hours or so to morphine before it metabolizes down to codeine and out of the system, which is like 72 hours, 96 hours. And he goes, are you sure that? He goes, yeah, positive that. And he goes, well, would it surprise you that Lieutenant Hegger, that's his positive on him? He didn't like that.
Wow.
So we reconvened the trial and brought him in and said, hey, we're going to reinstate him, all back pay, and he has the option to either take an exoneration or have it completely nullified. It was like it never happened. And
I think that's about as fair as you can get, isn't it, Joe? That's kind of like
Tom, you could still be on the police department if you knew that. You could just you ate poppy seeds.
I think if Harry recreated what I do on a daily basis, he would test positive as a rapper.
This was an interesting case here. We're working a major a cocaine trafficking operation. The Dominicans out of New Jersey and the Colombians through Houston, same source in here. So we got a wire on his cell phone and his house phone. We're working in cooperation with FBI and IRS. Mm-hmm. Shannon was involved in it. Yeah. So in the midst of all this, we finally take the guy off because we suspect maybe there's some policemen involved in this too. So we take the guy off and we take him to a motel room and talk about, next 300 years are not going to be yours. They're going to belong to somebody else, not you. You're going to be. He's like, okay, I'll cooperate. So he sets up a deal where what he would do when these Dominicans or the Colombians would come in town, they usually would pick up $250,000 at a crack. And on several occasions, he would be in a car or a cab, and when the guy would meet him someplace in the street, like late at night, he'd give him the bag of cash, and as the guy's getting out of the car, the police would roll up on him, place them all in handcuffs, and then take him behind a building someplace, like a church, a school, and say, want to go to jail or you just want to leave? Well, they just want to leave. And then he'd meet up with the policeman and get the money back and give him some of it. Well, so he says, yeah. So Bob is seeing, one of our guys on intelligence has seen this kind of take place but didn't know what was going on. So he sets up, we have him set up with the same officers. We're going to do a 10-kilo thing with some gangbangers. So we took 10 kilos that really looked good, put an ounce of real stuff in the 10, set it up in the Marriott right up there. It's Jefferson and Market. We had 2 rooms. You were probably in the other room. I
was in one of the surveillance cars with Danny Jones and Tony Lott.
Okay. So we're out there, and so we got the crook turned CI now in the room. He's got 10 kilos. These gangbangers come in there. And anyway, I tell Harmon, I go up and said, hey, we got to make a corruption case, and we spun off into this thing, and I said, it's probably going to go down this evening. He goes, how's it going to go? I said, well, we got these gangbangers and come down and buy 10 kilos from us for $100. They're going to do $130,000 up front, and hopefully they don't test it because there's only going to be 1 ounce in these 10 kilos. And I said, if everything goes okay there, they're going to go outside. Well, our guys inside is going to call the police, the officers, and they're going to take off the gangbangers, take their guns away from them and all the dope, and shoo them away. And then if that goes okay, when they drive away, then we're going to roll down on them hard and take them. And Harmon goes, oh, man, you could have a shooting the first time in a hotel room. Then the police could have a shootout with the gangbangers when they come out. He goes, it sounds kind of dangerous. I said, well, it's a little sticky. But he goes, why don't you just take them off? I said, no, we're going to do this. I said, but if you don't get a call from me before your alarm goes off in the morning, everything
went
okay.
good.
And it did. It went just like that, didn't it?
I can remember I was friends with Joe at the time, and I think those were the days of pagers still. And I was paging him, and he would never call me back, and he finally called me back. He goes, dude, stop paging me. I want to go out drinking or something. And you guys...
So they set this whole deal up, and our role was surveillance, so we were to to monitor. We were 3 deep. We were also supposed to be one of the takedown teams,
Right.
as needed. And Lockenick was with me and Danny Jones. And Danny Jones is one of the funniest people you've ever met in your life.
He is.
So DJ's in the back seat, and so the plan's in play, and you guys are at the hotel, and it's minutes, literally minutes. Well, my dumb ass didn't put any gas in the police car. This is in motion, right? Well, the policemen that were targeted on this were on duty.
Right.
They were on
yeah,
night
they were
watch.
on duty in marked units.
They were going to pull the car over, right?
How many policemen were there involved?
3 altogether, but only 2 that night.
So
And they weren't from the 4th District either, right? They
No.
were from the north side?
Right, this is
One
going down
fourth
in the
and one
4th
fifth.
district.
Okay.
Right.
Gotcha.
1 from 4th District, 1 5th District.
Okay.
yeah, so one of them was there. Anyway, so stupid Joe forgot to get gas, right? So I was like, I gotta go get gas, and DJ in the back seat go, "You dumb motherfucker! You can't go over to a police station. That's who we're locking up." I go, "I gotta get gas." He's like, "Go to the gas station." But no, I gotta get gas.
I ain't paying for that.
We pull up and who is standing there looking at us? I was like, and all I could think about was Harry Hegger is gonna beat my ass.
So
if
the
I
2
screw up this
was it the
case.
2 policemen
Yeah.
or 1?
Well, it was at least one because we saw his I think it was a 5th district
Because
car.
they came on 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
Right.
So they hooked up later.
Yeah.
So to give the listener just a idea, the Central Patrol station housed the 4th district, the 5th district, and the 9th district.
Right.
So you had a 4th district and a 5th district officer,
Right.
who then went to the Central Patrol station to meet up to go do this.
Right. The 5th
Robbery
District
or
officer
whatever you
got in
wanna
the car
call
with the 5th District officer got in the car with the 4th District officer.
Right, and Joe almost fucked it up.
Well, and any uniform officer that sees 3 guys assigned to the intel division out at 11 o'clock at night or whatever, it was
It's like something's gonna happen.
especially 2 dirty dudes like these 2 were. They were like,
Yeah, it was about 2 o'clock, 2:30 in the morning. The thing finally went
Yeah,
down.
it was late. Yeah.
The other investigation that I think everybody in St. Louis, especially our age, are a little older, or even a little younger, is the heroin trafficking that was going on in North St. Louis, and I think you started even with Fat Woods, I think Fat Woods wasn't he before the Petties and the Bays?
Oh, yeah. He was probably like, I think he got convicted like 71, 72, 73, somewhere in there.
And you, I believe, you started the investigation on the Bays, if I'm not mistaken. And how did that take place?
Well, they're somewhat separate, the Petties and the Bays.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification. 'Cause
Okay.
I just thought they all ran together and
Well,
sold
Tom,
heroin.
I read the book, and so I know a little
You
bit.
know, I'm the only, just for all the listeners, everybody brought their book in for Harry to sign. Everybody's read it. I do suffer from a medical condition that can't allow me to read for a long period of time. ADHD does not allow me to read more than 4 or 5 pages at a time. I like it
Well, I think
segmented.
JJ's on top of this, though.
No,
But JJ's going to get into the book,
I
right?
just- I read that was, to me, the book that was all fascinating. That was really because I grew up in that era, those streets, the district. I was in the 8th district when a lot of that stuff was going on before I got on. So I thought it was just fascinating. But it was the Petties, and there was a guy named Heyman.
Yeah, Dennis Heyman.
And they lived relatively close to each other, and they were they were just big time enemies. I mean, it's like
yeah.
crazy on the back and forth and the shootings, and it was like, holy cow! It was very interesting.
There was over a period, it started in March of 78, and we took off Lorenzo Petty on November 16th of 78. So you're talking, so it's 8 months or so. And at that time, I think we had, 8 murders and 20 other shootings. And one of the guys, I got a kick, I mentioned the book, Dennis Griffin, he went by the name of Gant. He was an enforcer for Dennis Heyman. He's a shooter. And 9th Bureau calls us. I was working afternoons, 9th District Detective Bureau. They said, hey, we're looking for Lorenzo Petty for shooting at our victim here, Dennis Griffin. I went, okay. It was over on Delmar or something. I said, okay, I'll try and find him. So it's about 11, 12 o'clock at night, and I find him up on 1900 block of East Aubert. I see his car, so I set up on it, my partner and I. And he comes out with another guy getting in the car, and 2 cars pull off. So I swing. I mean, here's two white guys. I could put a Kojak light on this old piece of crap car we're driving, pull them over, and get up to the car. And by this time, another car rolls up on us real fast. And apparently these were the guys that really had the guns. That they were the bodyguards for Petty. So we get them out of the car. I take them into the 9th Bureau, and we're talking on the way because I've always seen him on the street. I stop him. I'm always checking, trying to catch him with a gun. So we're in the 9th Bureau, and while I'm talking to him, he's handcuffed to the chair. The victim, Dennis Griffin, comes to the door. Now, here's a killer for Dennis Heyman. He's got a bulletproof vest on, and he's coming to the 9th District Police Station. And when he sees Petty, he's about ready to fall out. He backs out of the door. And Petty looks at me and goes, "Hey, Hegger, put that so-and-so in a cell with me just for 5 minutes." That's all I ask.
Now,
Did you? Did you?
No, I would
Think about it. Think about it. Did you give it a thought?
About 3 weeks later, Dennis Griffin is found in a trash bag, shot in the head in a dumpster. So,
Well, you could have maybe saved his life by letting him just get his ass beat himself. Maybe that would have done it for Mr. Petty, but I doubt
Lorenzo,
it.
you might hear this, Lorenzo. In fact, Lorenzo, I read your book. I found it very interesting. But yeah, Lorenzo.
Actually, that would be an interesting podcast, is to have one of the Petty family members and you in here. Well, you might have to have.
They still alive. Sam Petty died of cancer.
Sam died of cancer. Joe died in '84 from a motorcycle
What about
accident.
Lorenzo? That's right.
Lorenzo's still alive. In fact, I saw him right before I retired. I saw him at a 6th District Businessmen Association luncheon.
Straighten out his life.
He's a man of the cloth now.
Okay.
Okay.
Everybody needs to turn it
And
around
So
every
was
once in a
Dennis
while.
Heyman. Dennis Heyman.
Lorenzo was the youngest, though, right?
Who?
Lorenzo was the youngest.
No, Joe was Sam, Lorenzo, and Joe.
Okay, because I think the youngest was less. He said he was less violent than the other two. And
Yeah, he was less
He was
violent.
violent, but not as violent.
Right. He did. Sam was the really smart one and mean.
Vicious.
And Lorenzo was like, "Give me 2 guns, he'd take a whole world on with blasting away." He did when they came in the store.
Yosemite Sam just
5 guys
shooting
running the
from the
store.
hip.
He had that little CNC market at College and Carter. And Dennis Heyman's boys rolled up 2 cars, jumped out, rifles, shotguns, pistols, and went in there. Lorenzo picked up 2 pistols from underneath the counter and drove them away. When the police got there was guns laying in the street. The cars were running with bullet holes in them.
Now, would you say that was the most dangerous organization that you came across as a policeman?
Yeah, I think it was pretty cold. I mean, they were pretty cold. They had another one. I was riding around one Saturday morning, about 10 o'clock, and up around St. Louis, Spring in St. Louis. Call come up for a homicide at a vacant house. So I roll, and there's a guy laying there on the steps. There's a small pistol laying next to him. And some guy, witness says, "Yeah, some 2 guys pulled up in the car. One guy's got a shotgun. He said something to him and then shot him." So eventually, Levi Valentine, who was the guy driving the car that day, we talked to him, and he goes, "Yeah," he says, "that was one of Dennis Heyman's dealers." And he says, we pulled up, and Sam gets out of the car with a shotgun, and he could tell him, "Go for your SHI, go for your shit." And he said, as soon as he did, Sam blasted him right off Lorenzo blasted him right off the steps. And they got in the car and drove off.
So if you had to guess, how many murders were they good for?
Well, they had committed some as a juvenile, had been incarcerated when they were in the Pruitt-Igoe projects. Mm-hmm. I would say probably that number of 8 and 20s, that was probably the Lorenzo and them. Lorenzo, Sam, and Joe was playing a support role.
They had a guy named Award of the Year for the support role.
They had a guy named Keela Mesakila. He was an African national, and he was one of their main guys. He was like their brains, did all the dealing, and they were doing teas and blues and all kinds of stuff. And when Homicide brought Heyman and the Petties down as a truce to headquarters, which was kind of a joke, they get back and they're talking about, we still got to whack this guy, got to whack that guy, and we got to blow these 3 policemen up. They had 8 sticks of dynamite. They're going to blow up they throw a dynamite through the policemen's bedroom windows. And so Keela Mesakila says, "Hey, you know what? Why don't you guys back off a little bit? Too much media attention to you." Now he was one of the main deals in confidence. Sam and Joe, they say, hey, can you run us up to Goodfellow and Natural Bridge? I left my car there. It broke down, and I got it fixed. I'm going to go pick it up. Joe's sitting in the front seat. Michaela's driving. And Sam's sitting in the back seat. And they had a plan on, they got the Stratford right there on Goodfellow. Joe says, hey, pull in there. I got to take a pee. And while he's standing outside, Sam's sitting behind him, puts one in the back of his head, kicks him out of the car.
Right in the front seat?
Yeah, just shoots him right in the back of the head and pushes him out of the car. They weren't
mafia
going to
style.
They thought he might be an undercover federal agent or something, or CI. So that's why they whacked him.
That's like
That's cold.
old
I mean-
mafia style.
Oh yeah, I mean that.
So they kind of ran like a mafia. Like everybody thinks of the New York mafias, the Sammy the Bull and all those guys, how they used to whack people for reasons.
Oh yeah.
And that would have been one of the reasons they would have whacked somebody is
They
trying to be an
suspected-
informant.
They
Right?
didn't have 100% confidence in the guy.
How did they make most of their money?
Probably drug trafficking.
Which
we
drug,
were buying,
I
we were
should say.
buying drugs from a quarter of an ounce of heroin at a time for $5.50. We were using a controlled buy through an informant.
And how many?
Is that
people,
why they went to prison? Eventually?
Yeah.
So it was teas and blues or heroin. You said they were into teas and blues
Teas and
also.
blues were starting to make an appearance on the street because the heroin quality was dropping off from like a 3% down to 1% on what they're using.
Couldn't get high enough.
No, they couldn't count on the purity of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought I read somewhere in your book, and then you probably will have to cut this probably out, but I thought Sam Petty ended up getting like a Hong Kong connection or something. Was I mixing up my stories?
Yeah, Jerry Layshock did a case on him, search warrant, on the 3800 block of Penrose, probably about 85, 86, somewhere in the mid-late 80s. And with Sam's priors, he got big time, and he was always doing time in the penitentiary. While he was there, he was running a heroin operation out of Tokyo.
Okay.
Wow.
And the feds were looking at it, and they were going to prosecute him, but those authorities there wouldn't release the heroin.
And you mentioned when we talked earlier, when you started an investigation against the Bays, and you sent detectives, or you started working with the U.S. attorneys, how did that form the investigation? Because I know that
the
it
Bays?
started
You
on
mean
North
he
St. Louis.
means the Petties. You said Bays, but you were talking about the Petties, right?
I did start an investigation on the Bays.
Right. And I believe it was, and you take it from there. How did you start that investigation?
I was in homicide. I was a lieutenant in Crimes Against Persons Division, but my Colonel Hackett had me just managing all the homicide cases. And I had talked to Tom Dedmeyer, who was a U.S. attorney at that time, and we were talking about all these murders that the Bays were involved in, Jerry Lewis and all of them. So I wrote a memo through the channels recommending Frank Banaszak and Bob Dwyer be detached from homicide, and we're going to go after the RICO statute, 2 predicate acts being drug trafficking and murder. And so we set up an office over there in the U.S. Attorney's office, and so they started off, I think we took over 100 murder cases over there in the files, and they started putting that together, and then Bob went to the DEA, and then Frank retired, but luckily the Sal Sierra and a few others stepped in and made that thing work, and they all got convicted.
And then that trial, how long was that trial? That trial lasted a minute, didn't it?
Oh, it lasted weeks because there was multiple defendants, and it lasted, I know, at least a couple, 3 weeks.
And I know that was a tense time around the courthouses, and Joe told a story about how he was assigned to one of the witnesses. That almost killed him, but that's okay.
Those
Hey,
guys,
I think
The witness.
I think we need to back up a little bit, though, because we were talking about the Petties and we jump into the Bays. What was there a connection between the Petties and the Bays at all, or was it totally two different organizations?
two different.
Not even this.
I mean, they crossed paths, but there was 2 different organizations.
And what was? And the Bays were into the heroin and drugs.
Bays were, probably heroin. And then we did some search warrants on some of the Bays, and we'd find teas and blues.
And where in the city? I just, from my own personal, where were they hanging
The Bays, the Maury Science Temple of America for St. Louis was right just west of Robin Avenue on West Florissant.
out? Okay, not
That was
that
their
far.
headquarters in the 6th District.
Gotcha. Okay.
And now the petties got brought up, so I know, Joe, you had something to do with the petties too, didn't you?
No, I was peripherally. I never. Later on, I investigated their grandson, I believe. I think it was one of the petty grandsons we had. But yeah, I never. That era when Harry was doing that, I was not involved in those investigations.
Oh, they
Just on a
they killed
peripheral.
Charles Cherry too, and Charles Cherry was an ally both of Heyman and Petty. When all this war started up, Charles Cherry came over to the store, and Joe and Lorenzo were there, and he come over and he was trying to be a peacemaker. And they called Sam. Sam shows up. They take Charles up. Now this is from one of the guys was there, Levi Valentine, which was one of their enforcers, who eventually testified for us. But they took Charles upstairs, and they took a belt, wrapped around his neck, and it was Sam. It was Joe on one end of the belt, Lorenzo on the other, and Sam's throwing battery acid in Charles Cherry's face, and Charles Cherry's thrashing around, and the belt breaks. They jump on him, drag him over to the tub. It was an upstairs that had a bathroom, and then Sam put two in the back of his head, right there. In the
Acid didn't work.
the belt broke.
Oh, the belt.
The belt broke. They were strangling.
The acid was just to throw a little kicker into the
Yeah,
murder.
they were torturing him and trying to get information from him. So then they put him in a big trunk, and dumped him over on the east side. And a couple days later, there's a lineman working on the pole and sees it down. Hey, opens it up. There's a body inside.
Good God.
But I mean, they're pretty brutal.
Unbelievable. Obviously, you have a lot of memories that are in your book. What one sticks? What case or what event in the police department registers the most with you? When somebody tells you, what are you most proud of?
You know, it was probably at that point in my career that case meant the most to me. When I was in the 6th District Detective Bureau, this was in September of '76. We had a Northwestern Hotel at 4919 Natural Bridge, and a guy named Tippett was his name. He was probably the major button heroin dealer in St. Louis, and that was a 4-story hotel, 128 rooms, and you could never catch the guys in there. And he had a bunch of dealers in there, and they had a lookout in the courtyard, and then they had these World War I and World War II veterans in there that were mentally challenged. You know, they're probably post-traumatic stress and all that. And they were using those guys as couriers and making them go get food at McDonald's and all. Anyway, my captain, I was just a detective in the 6th Bureau, I said, hey, I think, and the captain's saying, we got to do something. I said, well, maybe I'll put together an affidavit for a search warrant. I'll go down to the judge. He's not going to sign it because we're talking a search warrant for 128 rooms. But maybe it's enough with all the evidence and the activities taking place, all the murders down there and the drug dealing, the arrests, that maybe we can get an injunction and shut the place down. God bless the judge I went in to see. He signed a search warrant.
All to 128 rooms?
Yeah.
I love it.
I went back to the captain, and he's like, holy cow. So he called downtown, and the next day I'm sitting there with Colonel John Doherty, the chief of detectives, and David Walsh, he's the colonel in charge of BFO, and they're saying, how many people, they're like, holy mackerel, how many people you need to do this? I said, probably about 50. I'm going to need about 50.
2 doors.
Because we're going to do 4 floors, and we're kicking 30 rooms a floor.
Now, what hotel was that?
This was a Northwestern. It's no longer there, but it was a Northwestern Hotel at 4919 Natural Bridge, just east of Kings Highway, north side of the street.
So for our era, it would be similar to the Carousel with 4 stories?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and some extra rooms.
Right.
So, you know, I started calling all these people, and people I trusted. They gave me all the worksheets for the whole city, and I said, I'll take him and him. I said, be at the 6th Bureau at 5 o'clock in the morning, tomorrow morning. And they all showed up. I mean, I only had like 5 years on the job, but you know, you got to know
Did
the
a search
names
warrant with 128
of
rooms?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we snuck up at Euclid in the east and the south the south alley of 4900 block. We're all there, and I said, okay, we're just going to charge across the street. And I wish somebody had a camera.
Just wing it?
50 coppers running across the street and running in there. Everybody already had its floors assigned, and you know, and it got done. I think we made like a dozen arrests. But what cooled the place, there had been a murder there a couple days before, and so activity had kind of dampened. But we still got like 10 or 12 guys. Some drugs and all that, and even the guy that owned the hotel. He came in there. We had him open a safe. He had a stolen pistol in there. He had a bunch of drugs in there. The owner of the hotel.
Who wrote that report? Holy cow!
I know.
Oh yeah, that's a good question. See, I didn't think about that one. But
I did.
Every
That's all I could
door
think
in the
of.
hotel was broken.
right.
And I walked through there, and I seen all these doors on the hinge. I'm going, man, I'm going to get fired. I'm going to get fired.
Oh, I couldn't even imagine writing that.
So then,
Oh Lord.
Bill Bryan calls me on a Monday. That was on a Friday. Bill Bryan calls me. Goes,
Bill
"Hey."
Bryant, the reporter.
Yeah.
Okay.
He goes, hey, can you take me up there? I want to see this place. So we went up there, and the owner was there. And he's like, hey, can't come in here. I said, hey, shut up. We're coming in.
Police business.
So Brian, and so there was like 15 World War I, World War II veterans in that, and they were placed there by the VA with the assistance of the public administrator for the city of St. Louis, and all the money was, their Social Security and their disability checks were being sent to the public administrator of the city and into one account, and they would give these guys $5 a day for meals, and their meals were those Landshire, those little wagons, Landshire wagons.
Right.
That was their food.
Well, I can only imagine how much that meant to you
Well,
just
I mean,
because of your background.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
that must have that I understand why that is.
Yeah,
That's
and
one of your
there was a
favorite
big
stories.
stink over it. I went into congressional records about and the VA got on the said, hey, we did nothing wrong. Well, 2 days later, they had all those guys loaded up and relocated other places.
Wow.
And,
so they were getting their government checks were going to them, and they would take them.
It was going in. All the checks were going into an interest-bearing account. This is what Bill Bryan found out. All the checks, their Social Security and their VA disability checks, were going into an interest-bearing account held by the public administrator, who was paying the owner of the hotel like how many hundreds of dollars a month for each one of those guys. It was a big scratch your back type thing, and.
Wow.
And I'm really surprised somebody should go to the penitentiary somewhere, but
I was going to ask anybody get indicted on that.
yeah, but nobody really pursued it.
That's a good segue into one of the things I ran across when I was doing a little research is that you got, during your time in the military, you got an honorable discharge, but it seemed like you got hired the next day. You got 2 honorable discharges.
Yeah.
And usually when somebody gets an honorable discharge, it's unusual for them to go immediately back into the military. What happened?
Well, I was still in the military.
Okay.
When I was in high school, I signed up with the Marine Corps in March of my senior year, and my dad had to sign for me because I was only 17, and my dad said, "You stay until you graduate from high school," and he says, Let's do this. Why don't you go in the reserves, 6-month reserves? You make the meetings every month and 2 weeks summer camp, because I'd like you to go to college. And then down the road, if you want to, you can go back in the Marine Corps. So I did. And I got out, and I was going to school in the evening. I was working on the assembly line, Ford Motor Company, and then my brother went in the Marine Corps, and then he got sent to Vietnam. By that time, this is late '66, we're seeing kids we were in the neighborhood not getting killed. So my brother, he's a Marine grunt. He was infantry in the Marines, and he went over with the 3rd Battalion, Kilo with 326, the 3rd Battalion, 26 Marines. So I thought, you know what, what's holding me here? I'm going to go over there and take my brother's place. So I asked to be placed back on active duty and sent over to Vietnam to take his place. And I finally get there, and I guess I'm there about a month or two, and we come out of the field, but back in the rear for us was a front lines for everybody else, but it was the old World War II tent. My whole squad were just laying in there. We're just exhausted. We've been on an operation, and the 10th flap. I'm reading my letter from my mom. We had a mail call, and my mom says, "Bud, I wrote to the President of the United States," and I'm thinking, this is not good. I'm a corporal in the Marine Corps. I'm at the bottom of the totem pole when it comes to chain of command. Okay. So I'm reading this. She goes, I wrote to the president and told him my only 2 sons are both Marines. They're both in combat zones. And they haven't seen each other in a year or so. Can you let them meet? Well, that from the White House all the way down. The next thing I know, the flop of the tent flips open. I hear a voice say, "Is Hegger in here?" I said, "Hegger here." He goes, "Hegger here too," and it was my brother.
Wow.
So I'm like, well, you didn't hug in those days. It wasn't very manly. It's like, "Hey, bro, are you doing okay?" So he goes, "Hey, bro, check me out. We got ambushed on the road about a half a mile. I got hit." He was wounded.
On his way to see you?
Yeah, a half mile coming down they was running on a Jeep, on a mail run on a Jeep on a gravel road, just we're way back in kind of the boonies. A machine gun opened from the tree line and had him pinned down there. And all he had was a 45. He says, they're about 200 yards away shooting the Jeep up. I'm leaning next to it going, pow, pow. And so we spent 2 days together, and he went back and said, "Hey, I didn't ask you to come here. I'm not going to leave my unit. That's my family." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, I just got here a couple months ago. I'm not going to go back either." So,
wasn't it was there a rule that you couldn't have two sons
two family members
in combat?
Only one could be in a combat zone,
and neither one of you wanted to leave.
Right. Oh, I went there to take his place, and he said, "I'm not leaving."
Hit it, Huggy.